That would have been a lot cooler if it hadn't crashed. So last week was exciting. I finally started doing some like real serious content production work on Gunmetal Arcadia 0. I'm still trying to get a vertical slice done in time for PAX South. I am planning to do a public test build of that vertical slice at some point, so that will probably go out to my Patreon backers first and then eventually to the public at large at some point. But yeah, so I'm building new content for that. I have a schedule laid out all the way through June when I'm hoping to release 0, and basically this vertical slice, if I can get that done in time for PAX, that will sort of tell me how believable that schedule is. So it's a fairly aggressive schedule. It's like graybox an entire level in a day, create a new boss from scratch in a day. But I've been keeping up with it pretty well so far, and I've actually also been doing additional work on top of what I had scheduled, just sort of to meet those demands. Like as I'm working on a new boss, I realize I have some features that I still need to implement, or maybe I encounter some bugs as I'm grayboxing a level and starting to place enemies in there. So I've had to do more work than I was anticipating, but I'm still managing to keep up with it. So hopefully in the next PAX, I guess, is like a week away, 2 weeks away. It's coming up real quick, so I don't have a whole lot of time left to work on this vertical slice, but I'm excited about where it's going. I've also been doing a little bit of work on an attract mode, which is going to be super important for demos. That was ever since the first time that I demoed Super Win the Game, starting, I guess, 2 summers ago now. Every single time I've demoed it, I've been like, anytime someone's actually sitting there playing the game, it looks cool, and other people will sort of crowd around and be like, hey, that's cool, there's like a CRT simulation and all that stuff. But when it's just sitting idle at the title screen, people just walk on by. I'm like, hey, arcade games solved this problem years ago, right? You just put it in an attract mode, let the game play itself. So that's something that I've been wanting to do since before Gunmetal Arcadia was even a concept. I wanted to do it on Super Win, couldn't get into that game. So when I started working on Gunmetal, I was like, this absolutely cannot ship without an attract mode. So yeah, I've been working on that, and it's taken a long time to get to a point where an attract mode was realistically feasible, because it requires like running at a fixed delta time, recording input, being able to play all that back reliably and stuff like that. But that does work now. I put up a video on YouTube, posted on Twitter a couple days ago. It launches into an attract mode from the title screen and plays a little bit and goes back to the title, and it works exactly as you would expect from like an old NES game or old arcade game. So that's really exciting to finally see one of those things that I've been aiming for since the very start of this project sort of coming into fruition. But anyway, I'm gonna go over to my computer again. I think I'm gonna make that a staple of the series now, is try to get at least a little bit of hands-on game footage every week. I'm gonna go over to my computer and play through the graybox level that I've been working on for vertical slice. So this is, as I mentioned last week in last week's video, I've been naming all of my maps after herbs and spices. So this is the cardamom level. This is my vertical slice level. So I've got a few torches and stuff in here. Got some doorways that right now they don't lead to anywhere. They just lead to these rooms that are empty. But my plan is that anytime you see one of these doorways in the background, it's going to be kind of a risk-reward opportunity. It might be an item shop. It might be a room where it locks you in and you have to kill a bunch of enemies to get out. I'm sort of if you've played like the original Monster World, they did a lot of that sort of thing where you never know what's on the other side of that door. And that's kind of what I'm going for there. So I'm imagining that this level would be somewhere in the middle of the game. I've sort of populated it with some of the easier enemies right now. These slimes or these grunt monsters that die in one hit and look kind of just like the player, because I haven't made final art for those yet. But yeah, I'm just sort of playing around with what sorts of things I might want in here. Of course, there's no decorations, no backgrounds, no big set pieces, so it's all just still, you know, gray boxes and stuff. But it's coming along. I'm sort of getting a feel for what it will be like to play through the whole thing. I have a bug here that I haven't solved yet. This guy's supposed to be crawling around that platform just like the one above him, and for some reason he just floats in space, and so I haven't figured that one out yet. But yeah, it'll definitely be fixed by the time this build goes out. Well, fixed or removed, one of the two. So that's, you know, a silly little trap where the floors will crumble while you're standing on them. So if you try to grab the item from that torch, it'll break from under you. And then this would be a mini boss. So there aren't going to be checkpoints before you fight bosses. It's going to be the sort of thing where you have to play through a leg of the stage, and then you find the boss and you have to kill them with whatever health you have remaining. Otherwise, you go back to the beginning. But then you do checkpoint after every boss fight. So I'll come in here. This is the biped enemy I was working on a while back. He's super easy to stun lock right now, which I need to fix, but you do that, you come over here, and the game checkpoints as soon as I enter this room. So you'll see if I walk into this next room, now there are Medusas in here, and let's say maybe that Medusa hit me and knocked me into there. So I'll respawn exactly where I said, right after killing the mid-boss. So that stuff is all working. I'm going to pause here for a second because I've secretly been recording this whole thing. I'm going to cross my fingers and hope this works because it still has a few bugs I haven't worked out yet. But if I open the console here and let's see. Alright, so I was recording that whole thing as though it were going to be an attract loop. So what we're going to see here is it should replay everything that I just did exactly as it was. Some things to notice will be not only, oh no, it looks like it's frozen here. Oh, maybe I just paused there for a while. I don't remember what I was doing here. This doesn't look right. Maybe this is right. I don't remember what I was saying as I was narrating this, but it does look like it's continuing correctly, so that's good. I was a little worried there for a second that like my first live demo of this might be broken, but it seems to be working correctly. What you should notice, and I would have to go back and watch the replay to make sure it works, but the items that are dropping from the sconces and from enemies should be the same as they were the first time. So those are randomized every time you play the game. They won't be, you know, a particular torch won't always drop the same item, a particular enemy won't always drop the same item, but it does need to sort of save off the random number generator, save off the state of that, so that it can reproduce the same output when you replay it. So yeah, so those should be dropping the same things. There is also some completely deterministic RNG in this game. For instance, enemies will always behave the same on every single run. They won't behave the same as each other, so for instance, one slime blob is not going to behave the same as another slime blob, but every single time you play the game, a particular instance of that enemy type will always behave the same. And that was a deliberate decision that I made, and I've been, you know, sort of adding features to my RNG components to support that behavior because I wanted it to have that sort of consistency. Because I've been watching so much AGDQ recently and I've had speed running on my mind, I was like, well, you know, probably I should make sure that this game is speed runnable as best as possible, and part of that is I want enemies to behave the same. Now, I think making loot drops completely deterministic would not be very interesting or be very fun, so those are random. But of course it does need to save off the state so it can replay it here. So we are approaching the end of, you know, the session that I recorded. I'm actually not sure what's going to happen when I die here. I guess we'll both find out together. Now that seems to work correctly too. So yeah, this was where I stopped recording input and went back and played the loop. So what will happen here is, I think I can actually just resume control from this point. well, maybe not yet. At some point, it should know that it's finished recording input and give me control back, or I can just go in here and manually stop it and then resume control. But yeah, so that's sort of the first leg of this gray box level that I'm working on. There's a second half that's about the same length as the first half, and then you'll go and fight a boss, and I've been working on the boss fight. It's not actually implemented in here yet, so I can't continue playing because there's nothing there yet. But I'm going to, I guess, close this real quick, and I'll go and off screen I'm cutting to my editor here. I'm going to show some of the work that I've been doing on a boss fight. So going way back to the early days of Gunmetal Arcadia development, one of the things I've been wanting to do with the narrative and the storytelling is try to do as much as possible with showing, not telling. So rather than finding an NPC who gives you a wall of text describing what's happening, just show it to the player. So that's been one of my goals, and I finally had a chance to, I guess, capitalize on that notion this week as I started working on this boss fight. So I'm going to show off a little bit of the work that I've been doing on the boss fight and some surrounding stuff here. Hopefully, I tried recording this a minute ago and it crashed, and I think Bandicam lost the video. It was the first time I had seen a crash on this boss fight, so those things happen. Alright, so as you're playing through the game, this is going to be, probably one of the earlier stages. You'll be inside the city where you start the game, and as you're traversing the city, you'll find these wall displays. And then these can be anything from like information kiosks to advertisements to, just whatever people would want on a screen. And you can jump and hit these and they'll drop loot, just like the torches or sconces from, any Castlevania game or whatever. But then eventually you get to the boss fight in this level, and the boss is actually this giant fleshy blob monster thing that has partially absorbed one of these screens, and he's using it for his face. So he's smiling at you, looking like he's trying to be friendly and helpful while he's trying to kill you. So I thought that was a sort of funny, clever little bit of this sort of, showing, not telling. I'm still sort of balancing this boss fight. It's hard for me to say if it's too easy or too hard. Projectile weapons definitely work well. I'm trying as much as possible to make sure that you can't really stun lock him. Even if you get him into a corner, every time you hit him, he has a chance to either move backwards or jump away to safety. So yeah, you can't really get him stun locked. And there he goes. So currently bosses drop the same loot that regular enemies do, but eventually they'll probably drop, like a health refill or maximum health increase like in a Zelda game. And of course, once he's dead, it will checkpoint you there and you can walk on to the next room. During the fight, of course, it puts up walls around the edges of the screen so you can't escape. All those sorts of things that you would expect from a boss fight in a game like this. Yeah, that's sort of the state of the vertical slice as it exists today. I'm really happy with how fast I've been knocking out content for this, and starting this week. So I'm recording this Friday, and of course it's going to go up on Wednesday. But in the time between, I should start working on new enemies, new NPCs, some new upgrades. So it's just going to be every single day new content getting added to the game, and hopefully have a vertical slice ready to go by PAX South. So that's going to be really exciting. Oh, I've been finally getting back into the habit of trying to make weekly builds. I don't know if I'm going to publish these either on my blog or to my Patreon. I was trying to have public builds posted weekly last year, but it kind of fell apart because I didn't have enough week-on-week changes at the time to make it worthwhile. But now that I am, developing content faster, I think there are going to be more week-on-week changes, and I want to be back in the habit of building on all three platforms from the start, just so by the time this game ships, I'm not rusty. I'm like, how do I even make Mac and Linux builds? So I've been getting that tool chain up and running again and making sure the game does work still on Mac and Linux. So that's in a pretty good shape right now. But Yeah, I think that's about it for this week. As always, thank you for watching. If you're enjoying this series, you can support the documentation of this game on Patreon, so I would encourage you to do that. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.